Guinness River, the other one on the Book of Kells and leading up to the Now, okay, I know I'm going to talk now about these Illuminated manuscripts and other ones. Why have I got an old stone on from County Kerry, of course? Some friends, I am not going to talk about Rome. I haven't time to talk about Rome. You'll have to take it in 3 or 4 words from me. And Owen is an impossible script invented by a crowd of Kerrymen, probably, who somehow got lost in Wales. They seem to have crossed gone down to Waterford, stretched across Ward, and into Wales, and come in contact with the Roman world, which had writing and things, and invented Owen writing, possibly a magical religious script, insofar as if I was a druid and I knew it, and Dickie Byrne knew it, and he was the only one that did, I could say to Dickie, well, Dickie, what's behind me back? And you would be amazed if I'd be doing this. You'd be amazed if Dickie would, he'd be doing that. He'd say, what's behind your back? Who's sitting 3 seats behind you? And he'd have the answer, because I could be telling the story with my fingers. Or 1 to 5, no, figure up a line. But you can't write much. This is the whole thing. And it never would work. So you can take it for all practical purposes, although it may have come to Ireland before St. Patrick and lasted into St. Patrick's time a bit, it was used for writing. These stones, not all of them stones, we have other examples too, but these stones have really got up one side so-and-so, Sean Lee, and up there, Maki, and then Seamus down here. So-and-so, the son of so-and-so. That's about all you can write. So, we can take it that writing came into Ireland with Christianity. Books are a sine qua non of Christianity. In other words, early monks had to have books. They couldn't possibly learn or teach all the Psalms and all the Gospels and all the epistles and all the other rigmarole that goes with church learning off by heart. So they had to have books. And they did institute books. Now, we know that the Irish really loved reading and loved books and had plenty of books. And we have, indeed, plenty of very fine books. What's concerning us mainly at the moment in this talk is illuminated manuscripts. Now, illuminated doesn't mean they light up at night. It means multicolored. The French are much more sensible. They have 2 words, to illuminate for light up at night, and illuminate for multicolored manuscripts and such like. Now there's all, so let's leave it. And let's move to the earliest manuscript of importance that we have. I'm going to change that, by the way. I brought that on my own. I'm about to see if it works any better. This is the earliest manuscript we know of in Ireland, and it's an ecclesiastical manuscript containing the Gospels of the Vulgate of St. Jerome, which was very precious and which we hadn't got immediately in Ireland. We had an older version, and St. Finian of Mobile in County Donegal went across to Rome and came back with what they called the complete Gospels. And the complete Gospels obviously mean the new version of St. Jerome, he composed in the 4th century. And St. Finian of Mobile had this and was very proud of it. And he had a good friend also from Donegal. That fellow's name was Criffin. Who is Criffin, you would say? Well, Criffin ecclesiastical name. It's like the Sister Concilios and the Sister Assumptas and the Sisters Johnny Grigoris. They all have real names as well. Well, Criffin had a real name, but his ecclesiastical name was Columcille. And St. Columcille, who was one of the royal family, borrowed the book from his friend because he thought this was grand. And I look at this book, and he said, I want to read it to see if there's much difference. He found there was so much difference, he took it home. He was an expert scribe. He sat down for 3 days, actually worked very hard, and he cobbed the whole book. And he gave the book back to Finian, never told him the copy. Finian heard about the copy, said he wanted it, that the copy was his, and for Columcille said, not bloody likely, I made the copy, it belongs to me. And you all know the story. They went to Diarmaid MacCarroll, the High King, for a judgment, and he made the judgment on copyright. To every cow its calf, to every book its copy. Columcille said, "Oh, you!" And he wouldn't have it, he's not going to give it back. And he gathered all of the clans, the O'Donnells, back there in Donegal, and they fought a major battle at Drumcap. And Columcille, although he won, there were so many dead that he exiled himself to Iona. Now that's an important date. 561, 563 were the dates, and he went to Iona, and we want to remember that connection. Iona is very important. But what's also important is the book. And this is probably the actual book. It's known as the Cathach. What you have in the second handout is, we don't mind the thing in the book ahead, it's only a historical bit. There's a lot of reading there, you can spend your time reading it if you want, or you can just read the titles and trot them out and say to somebody, oh really, you should have read Henderson on before the book is out. Or Northern Fact, and say, oh, you should have read Northern Fact. It sounds very good to learn. But you don't want to go reading it all. The book that is important is called the Cathach. C-A-T-H-A-C-H. Meaning a batter. Because it was kept in a shrine and carried around the armies of the O'Donnells to ensure, 3 times before a battle, to ensure victory. Obviously they didn't win the whole time, because eventually the book got, they say, taken away to Austria and came back into the academy where it now is. And the book is important, not just because of the history attached to it, which means that it probably is. This one may well be the actual one, but we know from the art and from the writing and accounts, we know, and it is the Vulgate. It is beautiful. It's written by a good scribe, and it has a few mistakes, as if written in a hurry. So everything does suggest, and it dates to the late 6th century. So everything suggests this is the actual book that St. Columcille wrote. What is important for this? Well, not just the writing, but the initial letters. Big ones getting smaller, and then into a line. It's the earliest example of illuminated art in northwestern Europe, the Christian Church. And these, Ireland was ahead of their lot. We did for decoration, the Celts loved decoration. But they couldn't just do a letter M, they had to do a fancy M. And in fact, they, oh come on, that thing is not working for me. Change, or maybe I have to wait a minute. Now, the letters, just 2 of them, there is colour in them, and that's yellow and red, yellow, yellow, red, yellow, red, red, yellow and yellow. So there is a bit of colours, and it's a brownish black script. So there's some colours, and there's dotted lines around the edge. Everything suggests that this is the beginning. That those are features. The letters getting smaller, those are features connected with Irish. And the art is totally Celtic insofar as it's spirals and curvilinear. There is no interlace. But get interlace as Celtic. Interlaced art came later. Came when the Irish began to go abroad, to missionize in Britain and on the continent in the late 6th and 7th centuries. And the earliest interlace we have in Ireland is probably about 630 to 650 after Christ. So if ever you see interlace, you can safely say, well, it can't be ancient anyway. It can't date before, let us say, 650, middle of, or sometime first half of the middle of the 7th century. And this is before. Now, the next step, of course, involved, among other things, travel from Irish abroad, as I say. And you had St. Columkill up here, going up to Iona, and later on St. Aidan going down to Lindisfarne here, and missionizing this region, Columkill and its other saint string up here. But there was another Colum they used, his name Columbanus. And Columbanus left Bangor in 561, I think, and travelled down to Bangor, found a monastery in Bangor in Wales, and then travelled down to Normuche, down here at the entrance, an island at the entrance to the Loire, and travelled off making famous monasteries, now famous, Auxerre, and around the place, Lourdes, and he got up into Burgundy here, where he met a lot of trouble. Ask yourselves, like any good detective or fiction writer, why do you meet trouble? What do you do to meet trouble? The answer is, cherchez la femme. You think I'm being sexist? I'm just telling you. He had done a little bit of converting here, and he converted the king, and the king got very pious, and the queen didn't think much of all this. She was missing out. So she kicked Columbanus and his crowd home. She said, get out. She got the army up and kicked them out. So he went all the way back. And as you can see, he took boat, headed out, met a storm, he came back. And he was blown back in. And he took that as a sign from God. So off he headed again. And avoided the queen like nobody's business. Headed up here, found a monastery at Corby, went to Paris. Well, don't know if he met any women there or not. He headed on anyhow, and down, across the Alps, leaving off one man, St. Gall at St. Gallen here, where there's a very famous manuscript also, and headed down to Bobbio, founded the monastery of Bobbio. Now, that sounds like just a sort of, in fact, it's vitally important, because he was a major saint, and there he is up there, it might be what he looks like. Anyhow, in Bobbio, they founded, in good Irish fashion, a school of writing, a scriptorium, and we had lots of manuscripts from there. And they came back, and here was the centre place where the meeting of people from the Near East and elsewhere and the West, the meeting place, and perhaps it helped Irish monasticism and such like. But we have one page of one manuscript of the Bobbio series. Now, in the Ambrosian Island in Milan, there are lots of manuscripts from Bobbio, including quite a few of this type. This one was either done in Ireland, probably by a monk who came back from Bobbio, or else it was done in Bobbio and brought back to Ireland. It's called the Codex Usurianus Primus. Doesn't really matter. Not only in the first book of Usher, Archbishop Usher, and it's number one, he gave it to Trinity College. The important thing is that it's got a red, it's got a page with a big picture on it, red cross with a little yuck at the top. That's the Cairo sign. It's the monogram of Christ. The Greek X shape with a little P attached, which is an R, of course, CHR. And any other thing, and Alpha and Omega on either side, because Christ said, I am in the middle of all things, I am the Alpha and Omega of, the first letter and the last letter of the alphabet. And why do we say that this one, red cross, red dots all around, that this one might have been done in Ireland instead of in Bobbio? Because, very fortunate, we have examples of crosses like this. And here's one in Loher, they're way down in West Kerry. And here you have the cross out in the Iberra Peninsula. and the Alpha and Omega. And if you don't see it well enough, it is here, the cross is lower, and the cross of the Codex Busserianus Primus. So anyhow, that's just a quick one to bring you up to, that will be coming up to after 600 AD. Late 6th for the Cobb, about early 7th for the Ambrosian manuscript. Now, the next step was from Iona. Columkill had gone across up to Iona, a little island up here, and in 634, Columkill was dead. One of his successors, Aidan, a major man, was invited by the king of Northumbria, that's this region, North England, Anglo-Saxon area, Anglo really rather than Saxon area, and he was invited down to perhaps convert the people and see what it was like, things were like. He came down and he did convert them, and he got things going, and he founded a monastery at Lindisfarne, which is, people forget, it's in England, but there's the borders, in Scotland, and it's in England, farther north than anywhere in Ireland. We forget that, which is, and it's a little island like Iona and the other islands. And from there, the Irish monks started converting the whole area. And this, being good Columban monks, in Columkill's monasteries, all were famous for their scriptoria. And these scriptoria produced the Book of Durrow, the Book of Kells, the Book of Lindisfarne, all very famous books came out of the Columban monasteries. Book of Kells, as I tell you, or it says in that thing, probably done by Iona and finished in Kells down here. Now, of course, there was trouble. After I told you that there was trouble again, Cherchez la Femme. Later on, shortly afterwards, indeed 30 years after, or less than 30 years after he came, there was a row about when you celebrate Easter. The Queen, who had become a Christian due to the southern monks, St. Gregory Pope Gregory had sent St. Augustine to the south of England, the home counties, and they had a different idea about when to celebrate Easter. The new system. Half of Ireland already were following it, but not the northern half and not Iona. And that meant not Lindisfarne. So there was the Synod of Whitby. Whitby's about there somewhere. And there's Whitby. Big major Synod, so-called, meeting. And they had a big row as when they were going to celebrate Easter. And naturally, Rome side won. And a lot of monks left there, went back through Iona and down to Mayo. And that's what the conference next Saturday is all about. But the important thing is that with contact with the Northumbrian region, the Anglican world, a new school of illumination began. And the best example of it is the Book of Durrow. And this is the Book of Durrow. A marvelous book. Are those lights too bright, or can you all see? You can. Right. The Book of Durrow, this is the best page, and you can see interlaced have just come in. But it's been kept very simple. You don't really understand it. They're using it quite separate, while the Celtic scroll work, they're really masters of it, and it's marvelous. So this is the first of the major books, the Book of Durrow. There's a carpet page, a new idea, perhaps invented by the Irish. It's called a carpet page, where the whole page is covered with ornament and nothing else. Now there's a page, the beginning of one of the Gospels, Initium Evangelii Illu Christi, Fui Dixit, etc., etc. Now, you can see again, in the Book of Durrow, this fellow is absolute master and loves playing around with Celtic spirals, even making like an animal a head here, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a snout here, and flaring nostrils. But he keeps very simple flatwords and interlace. And he keeps it quite separate. That, by the way, is the letter I, and this is the letter N. I-T-I-O-N. E-V-A-N, Now, a lot of people say the Book of Lindisfarne, the Book of Durham may have been done in Northumbria because they're quite close culturally. But recent work by Davio, Cronin and others who are here in the college and the whole lot about it have, I think, more or less proven that the Book of Durham, as most of us believe, this country, was not done in Durham, it was done in Ireland. Perhaps down at around Whiteshiggy, which is down in Carlow. This is one of the pages, and this is the page that caused all the trouble in the Book of Durham. This is the page with, actually, good versions of Anglo-Saxon animals. The only page. And if you hadn't this page, nobody'd have any trouble. But then, why not? They had to learn. They copied this page and they put it in the Book of Durham. But if they were doing, if they were good Anglo-Saxons, they'd have had no trouble drawing men and animals and being good representational art. The Irish were Celts, and they weren't interested in representational art. They did recognizable representations like this of a little man. They avoided having to put his arms, shoulders, and waist and everything. Just put him there in his little box or his cloak with his feet underneath. Now, I'm going to show you every gospel. There's by 4. Every evangeliar has 4 gospels in it. And it's by 4 people. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And all of these have symbols. I'm not going to explain the why or the wherefore of these, the various discussion anyhow, but you should know them. And I'm going to show you the symbols once here, once in the Book of Kells. The symbol for Matthew is known as Homo because of the man. And usually he's a winged man. That doesn't make him into an angel, but a man is Matthew. And there is the Saint Matthew in the Book of Durham. Here is Mark, the lion, as you can see. And as you know, the lion is the symbol of Venice. St. Mark's is the big face. And here is the lion. And quite obviously, this Irishman never saw a lion in his life. But he did enjoy painting it, and he didn't give it down. He was doing a nice decoration. So the lion is St. Mark. Luke and the lion is Leo, of course. Homo, Leo. Luke is Vitelus, which means a calf. But sometimes people say an ox. But the calf he is. And here's this calf. He's not a bad version. I love his stockings, nonetheless, and his high heel shoes. But that's artistic license. So that's Luke, the calf, and John is Aquila, the eagle. And there's John coming up now, and press around with that. There is John, the eagle, in his multicolored, technicolor coat, robbed from that guy who had it. Joseph. Well, there he is. It's a lovely coat. Did you ever look? I love this one. This is meant to be an eye. It's now put on as kind of hat at the back. But anyhow, there is this unlikely eagle. So now that's just to tell you. The next step is the Book of Lindisfarne. The Book of Durham generally dated nowadays about 650. You will generally see 670, but now they're beginning to pull it back. And I would say, why not 650 to 670? You can't be dead sure. It's on artistic judgment that we're taking. But coming up to 700, a man called Etienne in Lindisfarne did the Book of Lindisfarne.
Sorry, his name again?
Eadfrith, if you wanted, E-H-F-R-I-T-H or E-A-D-F-R-I-T-H. There's different persons who we think or can be recognized as a monk who left Lindisfarne for a while and actually studied in Donegal and Irish for 3 years or 7 years or something. But remember, Lindisfarne is an Irish monastery, even if it's begun to be run by Anglo-Saxons. This man was an Anglo-Saxon. And there is a difference in the art, and I'm not going to go into it much too long and give a whole lecture on why this is clearly Anglo-Saxon and not Irish. and I'm not even going to show you the Gospelers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because you can take it that they're so realistic, they just couldn't be Irish. But they're copies from items, Roman time. And this is one of the pages, to put in the, okay, that's one of the pages in the book of Lindisfarne, carpet page, with an interesting cross, but it's so tightly covered, and it's the new type of interlace, zoomorphic, which only means animal life. Well, there was some animal life interlace in the other stuff, but now you've ornithomorphic for the first time, which means birds. A lot of these have got birds' heads on them, and it's very tightly woven, thin lines instead of thick lines. Anyhow, it's a new style that grew up in Northumbria and was adopted in Ireland. There's a page from it, as you can see, Liber Generationis, Liber Christi. And there's lots of little birds going here and there around, and animals. You can't see the details there, I'm sorry. But then that's the new step. The next, I'm just leading up to the Book of Kells. I haven't time to do it in any detail. Now that's a comic joke, which in fact I couldn't resist making a slide of. Dublin Opinion 1965, I cut it out. It's the two monks here. There's your man doing the kind of Book of Kells. And here, your man says to this fellow, and Brother Finian or Finton is preparing the pocket edition. I met the fellow that did this. He didn't know that in fact the Irish invented the pocket edition. And they invented it later. And here's one page from the Book of Dilla, which is a pocket edition. They invented smaller books because they were doing so much traveling. They had to carry them around. And the big books would be on the altar, and the small books would be carried around. And they invented these small ones. And there it is. And here you have again, similar to St. John. He's only got one leg, and he's got four wings to make up for it. So you can see what's like. These books, the art from this is totally different from the art of illuminated manuscripts in any other part of the world. And that brings us to the Book of Kells. Now, the Book of Kells, it's not perfect. It wasn't meant to be perfect. It was meant to be marvelous. It was meant to be a great piece. A piece that wasn't meant to be read in a hurry, as you'll see. A piece that was a work, a masterpiece, that was to be put on the altar, do chun glóra dé agus an áir na hair. Or an áir naomh column kill, if you prepare. But it was a marvelous thing, probably started for the bicentenary of Columkill's death. Columkill died on the 5th of June, I think it was, or the 7th of June, the 5th of June, I think,
The 9th of June.
The 9th of June. Could be. The 9th of June in 597. All right.
Feast day is.
Feast what?
Feast day is the 9th of June.
It's the 9th, it doesn't matter. It's 597 is the important day. And for 797, they were celebrating his bicentennial of his death in great style, and they produced, we think that's the reason they started the Book of Kells. They didn't finish it. Now, I'm just going to, starting with this, the introduction, the canon table, just to show you. And just to show you how the book really was not intended to be used. The canon tables were invented by a man called Eusebius, and they've all got four, as you can see, 4 columns, and they've all got a whole lot of numbers, different reds and blacks and reds and blacks, and these numbers, well, these numbers, it's an index. These numbers corresponded to the verses in each person's gospel. And that would be, let us say, Matthew, that is Mark, Matthew, Mark, that's Luke, Luke here, and John here. And if you want to read up about the birth of Christ, let us say, you find that might be the birth of Christ in Matthew. Over here, you'd have what would be the birth of Christ in Mark. Here you'd have the birth of Christ in Luke, and here you'd have the birth of Christ in John. It's a very clever idea. But it's no good if you don't mark the blooming text. And you see the Book of Kelly, they didn't mark the text. They put a whole lot of numbers down here, which I think they invented anyhow as they went along, because there's an awful lot of C's and things there. You look all the same. But they never put the numbers on the text. So just a small example to show you the book wasn't meant to be read. Now, about the Book of Kelly. The book, Blanche was Henri, and people think she's probably right. There were probably 3 or 4 hands writing the text. That doesn't matter to us at the moment. But there were 4 artists, at least, working on it. And she gave them names. You can recognize the hands or the pages done by the goldsmith. Now she called it the goldsmith because he based his work like metalwork, like the Tower of Rothschild and Talisman. And then there was the portraitist, because he did a lot of portraits, and he did the major portraits. A slightly different style. He loved doing portraits, the other fellow loved doing minute little curves and knots and interlaces. And then there was the illustrator. He wasn't doing portraits, he was more flaring, exuberant, and the illustrations. There's only 3 of them left. He must have died before he did the big one he was going to do, because there's one blank page where there should be a crucifixion. That's never done. But he did other ones, we'll see them. And then you have the animal painter, who had a hell of a sense of humour, and it's very great fun to look at. And he did a whole lot of little animals and little details, people and fish and all the rest, in the margins or filling up spaces. And finally, if you want to add on another, there's the pupils or the apprentices. Now, well, stop this time. I'm going on too long. I will go 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Not enough. I'm going to show you quickly the pages done in the Bible. That's the best I can do. You'll have to look up and read them up yourself. I just cannot possibly do this, but next year we'll come back and we might do just the Book of Kelly in detail, or just the other Tower of Roads, or just something in greater detail. But this is background stuff I'm trying to give you, with some greater work on the Book of Kelly and on anything else.